Hi, I'm the Realtor Evan, and I'm coming to you from the road. I'm bringing you on a road trip today. I have a client who wants to take a look at some houses out in Idlewild, California. So we're taking a road trip and going to do some showings today, and I thought it would be a great time to talk about showings. And today I'd like to talk about the three most common types of showings that there are, as well as 3 tips that I have for buyers when they're going to showings, and 3 tips that I have for sellers when they are making showings available for houses that they are selling. Before I get into it, if you like the content, please don't forget to give me that thumbs up so YouTube knows that you like it as well. And as always, feel free to subscribe to the channel. The first type of showing that is most common is the open house. You've probably seen signs, and you've probably even been to one or two in your life. And this is just simply when the seller makes it the house available for people to come in and look at the house, whether they are actually interested in buying the house or perhaps they're just nosy neighbors that are taking a look and seeing what's available around the corner. Maybe they even know a friend that would want to move in next door or in the same neighborhood. So open houses are the most common type of showing. Then there's also a private showing. The second type of showing is called a private showing. And this is when you as a buyer realize that you want to look at a house, and perhaps you make arrangements through your agent or directly with the selling agent as to what time might be best for them to open up the house and you to come and see the house by yourself. Perhaps there might be another client or two there, but generally speaking, this will be done on your own with the listing agent and or with your own agent. And the third type of a showing that is most common, but probably the rarest of them all, is the solo showing. This is when the listing agent isn't even present, and usually your buyer agent, your agent, will come along with you and help you open the door and show you around and give you a little guidance as to what you're looking for, and maybe even have some more information after having spoken to the listing agent. Now that we've covered the 3 types of most common showings that there are, let's get into the 3 tips that I have for the buyer, as well as the 3 tips that I have for the seller when it comes to showings. The first tip that I have for the buyer is go to as many showings as you can. You don't have to necessarily go with your agent to every showing. And in fact, if you haven't yet understood or gotten to the sense as to what it is exactly that your top 5 needs are that we have discussed in the last video, going to open houses on your own is a great way for you to see the different types of houses and the features and what's actually going to make a difference for you to have in your house. Which leads me to my second point and my second tip for the buyer, which is when you go with your agent, or even when you're going alone, be sure to only discuss your thoughts that you have on a house with the agent, with your agent. This is not the time to get into discussions of your feelings and what you like about the house and what you don't like about the property with the listing agent or anybody else. Just take a look around the house and just keep your thoughts to yourself. The third tip that I have for buyers is, instead of talking about your thoughts, is you should be asking as many questions as you possibly can about the house and about the neighborhood and about the setting of the house in the neighborhood. So, for example, you may want to ask questions about what the the average electricity bill is for each month. You may want to ask questions about any issues with the plumbing or the foundation. When was the roof redone? Maybe the listing agent has some of these answers and maybe they don't. Maybe you can even test the plumbing to make sure that the water is working and the water pressure is good. Of course, ask before you do so, but this is a good time to check all of these things out. You also want to probably ask questions about the neighborhood itself, as I mentioned. What's the school district? Are there noisy neighbors? What's the setting like at night? If you're there during the day, you're not going to know what it's like at night. Is it going to be noisy? Are there going to be, issues that are going to bother you? If you're there at night, what's the setting like during the day? You may want to ask those questions. Is there going to be enough natural light coming in that you're going to want to have in your house, for example? You want to get a sense as to where you're going to be living. Is this going to be a through traffic street that's going to have a lot of cars driving up and down, or is it going to be a quiet street where the kids can maybe play on the street and not be bothered by that? So make sure to ask as many questions as you can to get a real sense as to what the house is like while you're there, as well as what it's like when you're in times that you're not going to be there. For the sellers, I like to talk about what it is that you can do when you're leaving the house to make it more sellable, right? Because the whole point of you allowing these showings for the buyers to come in and see it is because you want to make the buyers want to buy the house. And the best way to do that is to make them feel like they belong there. So the first tip for the sellers is when you're cleaning your house, right? So you want to make sure the house is as spotless as it can be. Talk to your agent about how to stage the house appropriately so that you are, the setting feels right. The buyers will come in and they'll feel like it's a homey environment. And most importantly, make sure that you are not in the house at the time. You want to make sure, again, that the buyer feels like they are coming into their own house. And that's very hard to do when the actual owner of the house is in the house at the time. So this is a good time for you to vacate the property. I know it's sometimes hard for you to have people come over to your house when you're not there, but this is a good opportunity to do that. Trust your listing agent, trust the process, and vacate the house for a few hours. If the property is already vacant, this isn't really an issue, but if the property is vacant, that leads me into my second tip for sellers is, even though you're not there, try to remove all of your presence from the house at the time that the showings are going to be going on. That means remove the personal items from your house. The buyer shouldn't feel like they're walking into somebody else's house. And even if you're not there, that's very possible to have that feeling if there are pictures all over of the seller's family. So remove all the personal items, the pictures, even that picture from the wall it's a good time to remove that or replace that for temporarily. And when you're getting rid of all of these things, don't just pile them up and put them in a corner of a room. This is not, that's not the storage facility. You want to make sure, again, that the buyer doesn't look at the rooms, a bedroom or another room as a storage room. You want them to look at the room as what it's supposed to be, the bedroom or the office, and that there's space. And, clutter is not going to help sell the house. So take your belongings, rent out a storage locker if you have to, and just get things out of the house for the time being. And the third tip that I have for the seller is make sure that there's a good smell that comes into the house at the time. This can be done, try to stay away from the manufactured air fresheners. If you do want to use that, use like some sort of like a clean linen scent and spray them or plug them in, a good hour or two before the showing's going to happen. Make sure to air the place out a little bit so the scent sort of lingers when the buyers are coming in, but don't make it overbearing for them. You can also cook or bake cookies is a good idea to sort of establish that sense of when a buyer walks in, oh, this is going to be a great home. I can see myself baking here, right? So make sure that the scent is something that's welcoming. And if you have pets, this is also an important tip because, cat odor or dog hair and dog odor, this is all of those things that you want to make sure are spotless and cleaned up so that those scents are not there as well. Obviously, with the whole coronavirus situation going on right now, things have changed a little bit. It's not necessarily, first of all, as easy to get a showing to be done. First of all, open houses are all canceled as far as California is concerned, and it also should be pointed out that when you're going to a showing, if you are able to arrange a private showing, there are additional documents now that need to be signed, understanding that you have been explained the risks of exposure for you and from you for the coronavirus. So keep that in mind when you're doing the showings these days. So we just finished a couple showings here in Idlewild. Obviously it took a little longer to get here and do that than what you saw in the video, but I appreciate you taking the time today to learn more about showings. If you have any questions, please comment below or send me an email, therealtorevan@gmail.com. I always answer all of them personally. If you like what you saw, please give the thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you here next time. I'm the Realtor Evan. Have a good day.